Hi everyone, welcome to podcast number 2 for NewsNow's new venture into the world of audio and video. I'd like to welcome Mark Kossek, Grimsby resident, who took it upon himself to launch an online petition just regarding some of the things that he's seen in town and hasn't been overjoyed with. So we're going to go through some of that and hope you find it informative. So Mark, just give a little background on yourself, where you're situated in town, and let's just start with that.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate having this opportunity to chat about this. I'm from my wife and I, we live just on Olive Street in Grimsby, so the north side of the highway there. We're Ward 3 constituents. We moved here in December of 2016. From Oakville, and so I've been I've only recently sort of started becoming sort of an active member in sort of the Grimsby community and what's sort of paying attention to what's happening and everything like that. But it's I work for myself. I'm a massage therapist. I love Grimsby. It's a great town, and it's just it's worth fighting for, I think.
So you mentioned about being involved. Like what have you been doing to be involved?
So it sort of started with I first started sort of paying attention to things with like the Heritage Conservation District stuff and the Save Main Street project. Because coming from Oakville, I've sort of seen the development of a small town and sort of what can happen if it's not sort of done in the right ways or the best laid plans. And so when the HCD study was sort of being put in front of council, I reached out to my councillors Dunstall and Vane, and saying that we support the study, and sort of the response that I got back from them didn't appeal to what I was hoping would happen. So I just sort of started paying more attention to what was happening in Grimsby. Then that was sort of my first venture into it. And then there's the Grimsby Community Talk page on Facebook, and joining that, you see a lot of people sort of talking about different things happening in town. And I just started, paying attention to it. I'd be reading the, people that are posting up there, stuff that you're posting, just keep myself informed as to, what's happening in town. I've attended a couple like the ward boundary meetings online because, you want to put some input in there. Because I'm understanding that municipal politics it directly affects your life so much more that having a voice towards it is, something that you really need to do, because, they affect your life more than provincial and federal levels of government. That if you're not happy with what's happening, then it's up to you to speak up about it.
Yep, and I have noticed, particularly in the last week or 10 days, there's been, let's say the volume has been turned up a little bit.
Absolutely, for sure.
on some specific issues, some more general in terms of what people in the community are seeing. So I mentioned the online petition at the start. So what nudged you down that road?
Well, it's it had to do with the firings of the staff that was sort of happened at the end of March there, beginning of April, where there was just sort of this wholesale firing of the 3 senior finance people there, and I believe the next day the operations manager was let go as well, and it didn't seem justified. And looking at the responses of people online, and they're talking about this, and there was a lot of sort of disdain towards what was happening, with Harry Schlang and sort of the so-called Grimsby Five. And they were talking. There was an article that was shared about it, and people were talking about it. And I just said, I just made a comment like maybe we should start a petition or do something like that. And it got a lot of likes. So I have experience sort of with a petition in the past that did well. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. Someone needs to initiate something, so why can't it be me? And I just went on change.org. I put together a nice little sort of synopsis of sort of what we feel needs to be done and sort of what the current issues are that's happening. And I just put it out there, in the hopes that people would sort of look at it and maybe it would sort of start something. I was not expecting this at all. Like, this was not sort of.
Well, I noted, and I'm sure it's built into the program. Having checked in on that over the last, what was it, Wednesday? You put that up,
yeah.
So it's a week today, really. it started out at 100.
Yeah.
You know, the little meter or whatever they have. And then when you hit the milestone, the site automatically clicks up to 2, then 5, then 1,000, etc. So the last time I looked was a couple days ago, Monday, and I actually had it on my screen when it went past 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's 1,000 in 5 days.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned you didn't expect that kind of.
No.
Either could you speak to either that response or what type of response have you had? Any calls or feedback from the community about it as a whole?
Absolutely. So there was, like, first of all, yeah, like when I put the petition, it's more just to sort of shine a light on the subject, right? You know, to get people talking about it.
So what is the subject?
The subject.
What do you like? Because talk about what the survey is itself.
Okay, so it is about an investigation into Harry Schlang, particularly sort of his
administrative.
His you know, and his hiring in particular, right? Like his, you know, he has a historic personal relationship with one of the G5 members. He came from Brampton. You know, he was fired from Brampton. He has, you know, a dubious, you know, sort of past to himself, and you know, he's coming from Brampton to us, and you know, his contract that he has with Grimsby is you know, overly redacted. We have no idea, you know, what sort of authority he has with the town, what sort of hiring and firing he can be doing, you know, things that we don't know what his termination agreement is at all. And
the only thing on that shone any light was a comment made by Councillor Randy Vane at the last council meeting, where I believe it was the mayor. He kind of interjected and said, you know, we have no authority to. It wasn't question. I don't remember exactly, but you know, the recording is there anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. Something about sort of like Harry has that authority to do the hiring and firing for. Yeah,
and council didn't have any. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it was something along the lines of council didn't have any say in the matter or something of that nature. So that's really in terms of what authority he may or may not have. That's the only public knowledge I'm aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and you know, and we're a town of 30,000 people. You know, first of all, do we even really need a CAO? And you know, he was fired from Brampton. He's making $300,000 a year in severance right now from Brampton. So you know, what kind of severance has he sort of packaged as he built into his contract here? Because I'm assuming that the next council is going to come along. You know, they're going to remove him. You know, that's going to be a big part of a lot of people's platforms to even run, is to remove Harry if he hasn't been removed by that point in time. And well,
honestly, that's a year and a half down the road.
Yeah.
And may not, like, you know, so for today,
yeah,
I just like
absolutely.
I don't want to get too speculative.
No, for sure. But yeah, so for us, it's you know, these guys ran on transparency. We want to know, you know, how this town is being run, and we didn't elect Harry. We elected these guys, and they brought Harry in, and now, you know, everything is behind closed doors. We don't know how things are happening. We don't know what sort of authority Harry has. He's firing people left, right, and center. He's bringing people he worked with in Brampton here. It's, you know, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at, and you know, like the very first thing is just even the relationship he has, you know, with you know, the you know, I don't know if I can mention it, but you know, the particular G5 councillor, you know, it's a long historical relationship. It's older than I've been alive, you know, and that's something like, how is that not a conflict of interest? You know, I don't know. I do know that there were other candidates that were being looked at for the CAO position, and from my understanding, they were very well qualified to be CAOs for this town. But like I said, you know, do we even need one, right? And so right now, it's just about investigating sort of how that happened, and you know, getting information and transparency out of the G5. Like, we're getting nothing from them, just nothing.
Yeah. In the past, the town of Grimsby's had a town manager. They didn't have a CAO. And even Derek Brandt, who was there prior to Harry, was, I believe his title was town manager. I know that Keith Vogel before him was town manager, and Gary, the fellow who was in there before him, was town manager. But so you're right on the title. There's no stipulation in the municipal act or administrative structure that makes that a requirement. Yep. That's true.
Yeah, and you know, we can, you know, I think. You know, we're only being 30,000 people big. Like, we can come together and organize this town ourselves with, you know, councillors running committees and sort of doing it in a way that we don't need to have one person sort of running the town as a fiefdom for himself and us having no clue what's happening.
Well, you mentioned too about being involved in other things and, you know, having your eye on the ball for some other issues. Maybe if you could just highlight a couple of those things, like, because I know that from hearing from many people on a variety of topics, the administrative aspect is one thing, but some of the other things that you're seeing, like, for example, do you watch council, or do you go back and watch the recordings?
I've more recently I've been trying to pay more attention to the council meetings and things like that, because I want to be involved and I want to be informed, because that's the big part of it, is you want the correct information as well, right? You want to be making sure that your sources are accurate and you're getting the right information towards yourself. So I've been paying more attention to, especially like with the development happening down by Casablanca, because of concern to us is infrastructure. For Grimsby, if all this development, are we going to have the infrastructure to be able to handle all these people, the road systems, police, fire, things of that nature. The HCD, that was a particular one for me, the study for that, because again, there's a heritage to protect in town, and you sort of notice that it's sort of a similar group of councillors are voting, that don't seem to be in the best interest of this town. Talking to a lot of people, it's they don't want developers to have access to our main street, right? And an HCD is like the ultimate power tool for citizens to have to control that, or at least have some authority over that. And we didn't even opt to have a study to see if that was something we wanted to do. And for myself, it's like, we need to have those things for the citizens. We need to be paying attention to what's happening in Grimsby, the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. We need to, all these things are very local and municipal, or local things that we need to address, and people need to be on top of, and people need to be paying attention to, and they have to ask their councillors questions. If you disagree with your councillor, they're there to be messaged, to talk to ask them questions. I unfortunately don't get responses from my councillor anymore.
I was going to say, I had a communication from a lady the other day that got an answer from one councillor, not from another, also a Ward 3 resident. Mentioned that she had not heard back on an email from Councillor Dunstall, and received an email back from Councillor Vane saying that he wouldn't look at her email anymore. So I don't know what you.
Yeah, like my experience in that, like I've shared my disagreement with their positions, and I've been responded to, being told that my position was misinformed, and that my anger was misplaced and things like that. Like, another big issue as well recently is like the whole sign thing that's been happening with the the Who Speaks for Ward 3, and the fact that they didn't even want to, a particular group of 5 councillors didn't even want to recognize the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was being violated. And they vote. We had to get the Canadian Civil Liberties Association in to pen them a letter to say, hey, you guys are wrong about this. Did
you have a sign?
Sorry?
You had a sign?
I have a sign on my front lawn. I also have 2 magnet signs for my car that you'll see driving around town every now and then. And that was another issue. Like, these guys are trying to stifle freedom of speech. If I remember correctly, like one of the councillors even said signs aren't speech, and it's like, that's absolutely and completely wrong, and we need to be on top of that, because as citizens, if they stifle our speech, then we lose control of Grimsby and everything around us.
Well, that's a larger democracy issue.
Yeah, absolutely,
far
absolutely.
Far grander scale than
definitely
municipal issues. So back to the petition. Your petition was to the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Yep, Steve Clark.
And the Ombudsman.
Yep. Dubé, I believe it is.
Paul, I think. What is there a goal? Like, what would you hope to achieve there?
So ultimately, I'd hope to achieve, like, for beyond Grimsby, what I'm hoping to achieve is that we can get some legislation, provincially, that gives citizens in municipalities the authority to change their council, should they see that the council isn't fulfilling the promises that they made to the citizens. So ultimately, I'd love to see them I'd love to see that, Ontario, because I believe British Columbia and Alberta have put recall mechanisms into their provincial legislations now.
Alberta charged the Solicitor General to review it about a month ago, and BC does have it in place.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we need to address. And I believe, like, even today, the province of Ontario has put something out where they're doing a survey about that, too.
Yeah, they're calling it an accountability survey.
Yeah.
It's not directly related to a recall or anything. But when I spoke with the minister's office for a story 2 editions ago, they noted that review, the accountability review, was a mechanism. It's mainly for them to communicate with the 400 some municipalities in Ontario.
Yeah.
But citizens can submit opinions and inquiries or whatever they choose. So we will be
because I do
getting
see
a link.
I believe you have an opinion poll on your site about that, and I do know that somebody's actually started a petition, a more broad petition about the recall. I believe on taxpayer.com as well.
I saw that just today. Canadian Taxpayer Federation.
Yeah.
That was related to spending matters and things like that.
Yeah. So it's really about speaking to the people that represent you municipally and provincially, and ultimately we want to be able to have a voice, so we can if we don't like what's happening municipally, it's not something that could happen willy-nilly. Obviously there has to be mechanisms in place, so not
significant
exactly so you can't just on a whim do anything, but you just to have that process there, so councillors know that there is some sort of accountability that they can be held to, would be fantastic, for as a citizen to know that you have that option there.
And it is important to note that if were anything ever to happen, it would not affect this term of council.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of thing takes
it's a process.
Years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we did I did speak to Sam Oosterhoff as well, and he did say that an ombudsman investigation is something that we could apply for, but that's again, it's a lengthy process in that as well. So there's things could happen quickly, things could happen over time in regards to this, but we're just hoping things will happen. That's really the ultimate goal here.
Well, I know that there's been quite a few residents who have called the MPP about that, and you don't need to go into great length about it, but what was your point to Sam? Was it related to the petition or just general concerns?
So speaking to Sam, it was about the petition, about sort of could the province even do an investigation municipally for us, but also in the broader sense of municipal accountability across the province, and are they doing things to potentially address that? And it seemed like things are in a positive light that way, that they are listening to the people, and they're recognizing that people are putting that voice out there, that we want more control, especially now. I think with the pandemic happening, the idea of focusing more locally and taking part in community and helping your community more locally, I'm hoping that will sort of introduce people into sort of paying attention to the municipal politics even more now than ever before, and sort of what can we do to serve our community better now, and hopefully this sort of stirs some of that up.
Well, that certainly is the case, because I could tell you, people are tending to pay much more attention to their own fishbowl, because that's where everybody's been living for
exactly.
A year.
Yeah, and that's
very
it.
Little travel, even on a regional scale.
Yep.
So yes, things that normally probably wouldn't have gotten much attention are micro reviewed.
Yep.
These days,
and even the Grimsby community page that's up there, it's the pandemic has been the time when you've seen the numbers just explode. I think they're over.
It's passing time for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is, and that's it, and that's where a lot of these people are getting the information. And we were speaking to earlier with this petition.
And on that, I don't mean to interrupt you, but on information, it is. I don't generally wade in on those platforms much, but sometimes I have to correct information. Even well-intentioned people get a little overzealous and maybe overstate things or whatever. But one point I wanted to make too, because you see it especially online, and it's not just on Grimsby pages, but because people disagree in thought, doesn't mean there's no entitlement there to go overboard or call names, or
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, if there's a theoretical debate to have, and let's have it. Because depending on which side of the fence you're on, it certainly needs to be had.
Absolutely, and that's it. Like it's respectful debate is the best kind of debate you can have.
Yeah.
It's no ad hominem attacks and things like that. It's just about you have a point, and it's about trying to convince the other people. And like I'm certainly not a conservative, but I had a really great constructive conversation with Sam Oosterhoff, and it was that's what you're hoping to do, and you're trying to accomplish is not name calling. It's not being aggressive, because then it just shuts down the whole argument, and it makes everything a moot point at that point in time. It's just about being respectful, and I've had great debates with people I completely disagree with in my life, but you walk away at the end, and it's like, that was fantastic. I still don't agree with you, and you don't agree with me, but we were able to sort of
nothing wrong with that.
Put our thoughts out there and walk away with a little bit more insight into how the other side is thinking, for sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Any other ground that you wanted to cover or mention that we haven't touched on?
So I know that a few big points that I'd like to sort of put out there, just sort of in regards to the future of Grimsby and stuff like that, is the first thing is like municipal politics. Pay attention to what's happening in municipality. Ask questions of people. Talk to your neighbors. Sort of get a sense of what's out there. And the other thing is, if you are interested in becoming involved in Grimsby or a local council of any kind, pursue it. If I know right now Grimsby, I know they'd be hoping to find some councillors for the next election. And if you are interested in doing that, and if you feel that that you have what it takes to do that, then this is the time to sort of put yourself out there and start to talk to people. And aside from that, Grimsby's a great town. There's a lot of stuff that's great about this place, and that the people in this town are fantastic. And I just want to see what's best for Grimsby in the future. I want a plan that in 30 years everybody that's living here is happy with what's happened, and looking forward to the next 30 years.
That would be a magic elixir.
Absolutely, and it's it could be a dream that I'm having, but
it's a good dream.
I just believe in
for.
Good community and happiness, and I'm not against development. I'm just against doing things that are that's for the greater good and for the longevity of this town, right?
And that's an important thing, and development's a whole other issue, but development drives the bus.
Yep.
There's no question. And it needs to happen for infrastructure, like you talked about, feeding the town coffers with development charges and things. Development allow a lot of great things to happen in town. But it needs to be community appropriate.
Absolutely. So it needs to be responsible, and it needs to be what the citizens want. And if our council isn't listening to us, then it's time to make some changes. We're a year and a half away from that, but this is the time. In the meantime, this is where you voice your opinion to your councilors. You email them, and you let them know what you think. And if they don't respond, that's fine. You can just keep sending them emails, because I do know that every email that goes to grimsby.ca, the town website, it has to be archived. So it's something that needs to be they don't have to reply to you, but you can just keep sending them information and your opinions, and hopefully they'll start to listen.
Yeah. And far be it for me to defend any council as far as dealing with development and such, but whenever I talk development with anybody, I'll always remind them, whether it's Grimsby Council over the last 20 years or any council I've ever covered, they have their guidelines and their marching orders through provincial planning standards, which are generally driven and motivated by Toronto standards. Your 20-foot lots and no setbacks and things like that. So in some regards, their hands are significantly tied. You're going to lose an OMB or an LPAD. And
absolutely.
So, but there's still things that can and should be done.
And even if you do lose in the end, showing you made the effort for the citizens is what they want to see. Sometimes your hands are tied. There's nothing you can do. But as long as you're fighting the good fight and making the effort for the people, that's what they want to see. They don't want to just see you just hands up and walk away and say, no, we're just, run roughshod over our town and do what you got to do.
Yeah. And any developer is going to test test that
Yep.
situation, right? And I don't fault them for that. That's their job. That's their industry. Exactly. They're trying to make a buck, and that's not a bad thing.
They're going to ask for the variances, and it's up to it's up to. And I don't know if you have time, but like I know in Oakville, like where my mom used to live, they were limited to 8-story condos, and then the developer said, "Can we go to 12, and we'll do this for you?" And now less than a kilometer away from those 12-story condos, they're now building 22 and 30-story condos. You give an inch, and then they want a foot, and
that's Casablanca, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 12-story max out there. That's a thing of the past.
Absolutely.
So I think, was there anything else you mentioned?
No, Mike. I think I just I thank you for having me here.
Thanks. For
please sign the petition if you feel like this is something that you want to do. It's change.org/save Grimsby. I did create a little some sort of code or scanner thing that I'm hoping to put out there so people can have that option as well. But sign the petition. Talk to your counselors, ask questions, and hold them accountable, because that's if you don't feel like you're getting the good governance you want, then it's up to us to demand it, right?
Yep. Well, thanks very much for coming in today, Mark. Appreciate your time. And the community as a whole, I think, is better for people that are paying attention and putting in some time like yourself. And thanks for that. I would, we talked about debate and ideas, exchange of ideas. I've got Mark sitting here with certain views on how things are happening at council. And if anybody from council wants to come in and give an opposing view or explain why some of the things are happening, or if Harry Schlange wants to come in and talk next week, we would certainly try to schedule that. There's no. It's all about debate on both sides of the. Well, we don't have an aisle. I don't know what we have, but. Both sides of the political fence, I guess. I don't know. But absolutely, we're an equal opportunity podcast.
I think that's great. I think that absolutely give everybody, if you want to speak to this, speak to that, and that's what we ask. We ask them to speak to some of the questions we have.
Okay, sure. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Mike. This has been awesome. Thanks.